SCP-173, the Blink, the Site-19 containment breach incident. The fluorescent lights hummed above the corridor of Sector C, the sound thin and nervous, like something alive and afraid. It was 3 a.m., the quietest hour in Site-19. Most of the facility slept. The air tasted like metal. Inside the observation booth of SCP-173's containment chamber, Research Assistant Elias Miller waited with a clipboard in hand, his reflection ghosting faintly in the glass. Beyond the barrier stood the cell, concrete walls streaked with dark stains, the floor marked by rust-colored residue that no amount of bleach could erase. And in the far corner, crouched motionless under the white glare, was SCP-173. It was a crude figure of concrete and rebar, shaped into something that only roughly resembled human form. The painted surface had cracked with time, its colors faded, yet its head seemed to follow you no matter where you stood. Miller had been staring for several minutes before realizing he'd forgotten to breathe. The intercom buzzed, startling him. "Team Kilo 7 reporting," said a voice. "D9432 and D2010 present for chamber maintenance." Miller pressed the switch. "Proceed." The containment door released with a slow hydraulic sigh. 2 D-Class personnel stepped through, their orange uniforms reflecting in the glass. "You know the protocol," Miller said. 3-man rotation, no blinking out of sync, doors stay sealed until we're done." D2010 nodded, trying to mask the tremor in his hands. D9432 smirked faintly. "Relax, kid, it's just a statue." Miller's eyes flicked up. "It's not a statue, it's waiting." They entered. The door locked behind them with a deep metallic thud. Inside, the air was cold, still, like the breath of a sealed tomb. SCP-173 crouched in the corner, its smooth painted face turned slightly toward the light. For several minutes, the cleaning went as usual. One man scrubbed the floor while the 2 stood watch, calling out each blink to keep rhythm. It was tedious work, but simple. Simple, as long as the lights stayed on. And then, at 0:42, they didn't. The first flicker was subtle, a tremor of light across concrete. Miller's breath caught in his throat. "Keep eyes on it," he barked. Then darkness swallowed everything. A single moment stretched, silent and infinite. And in that darkness, something moved. It was fast, faster than thought, a rush of air, the scrape of concrete. Then, crack, a short scream cut off halfway. "Where the hell's the light?" Someone yelled. Another crack, another silence. When the emergency lights returned, 27 seconds later, the world was red. SCP-173 stood in the center of the room, streaked with fresh blood. The 2 D-Class lay where they had fallen, necks bent backwards at impossible angles. Miller was gone. The door somehow was open. Alarms began to echo through Sector C. Red warning lights pulsed along the ceiling as containment teams scrambled to mobilize. Monitors flickered, cameras died one by one. "Unit Alpha, report," someone shouted over radio static. "Hallway 3, multiple casualties, no visual on the entity." Another voice crackled through. "Lights keep flickering. Every time they dim, it gets closer." A burst of static, then silence. Security footage from camera C-17 captured only fragments. At 03416, an empty hallway. SCP-173 standing behind the security glass. At 4014, 3 bodies on the floor. Then nothing. Dr. Elena Rourke hid beneath the shattered console of the control room, heart hammering against her ribs. Around her lay 3 technicians, motionless, necks cleanly broken. She'd watched it enter. They had sealed the control door, confident that the locks would hold. They'd stared at its image on the monitor feed, frozen, distant, harmless. Then the lights flickered, once, and it was inside. The monitors burst in a shower of glass. The technicians hadn't even had time to scream. Now there was only silence, and the faint grinding scrape of concrete sliding slowly across tile. It was searching. Rourke pressed herself deeper beneath the console, too afraid to breathe. She could feel it, not hear, not see, but feel it. The space shifting as though it displaced the air itself. It stopped inches from her hiding spot and waited. Minutes crawled by. Then, from somewhere down the corridor, a distant voice called out, a survivor, shouting for help. The sound drew it away. When Rourke opened her eyes again, the room was still. She was alone with the dead. By the time power returned at 4:12 a.m., Sector C was silent. Response teams advanced through the halls, boots slipping on blood-slick concrete. The smell of copper and ozone hung thick in the air. They found SCP-173 in the generator room, surrounded by its work. It stood motionless beneath the floodlights, as if caught in the act of waiting. No movement, no heat signature. But its head was turned toward the entrance, facing them. No one spoke. No one dared blink. The retrieval teams used remote cranes to transport it back to containment. Not a single man entered the cell. The cleanup lasted 3 days. 1 week later, the O5 Council convened in the dimly lit briefing chamber. O53's voice was sharp and brittle. "One power failure," he said. 27 seconds. 32 dead. O57 leaned forward. "Triple redundancy. Separate power grids. No manual overrides." O59 watched the frozen projection of SCP-173 on the wall, its head cocked as though listening. "And if it learns to wait?" he asked quietly. A silence hung heavy across the room. Finally, O53 spoke. "Then we stop waiting. Increase rotations, reinforce containment, and for God's sake." He paused. "Keep the lights on." Weeks later, Sector C reopened. The chamber was rebuilt. 24 LED floodlights, each on its own independent power source. All cleaning was automated. No human has entered the cell since. And yet, every few nights, the motion sensors trigger for less than a second. Just enough for the system to record a single frame of movement, always when no one is looking. Part 2. The Aftermath at Site 19. The corridors of Sector C were quiet again. Too quiet. Every wall had been scrubbed, every trace of blood and bone erased. The air still smelled faintly of disinfectant and metal, the kind of sterile cleanliness that only exists after death. Containment Specialist Adrian Cole stood outside the newly sealed chamber, clipboard in hand, eyes flicking across the checklist. 2 guards flanked the entrance, their flashlights cutting pale circles into the concrete. "All systems restored?" Cole asked. "Yes, sir," one replied. "Full grid redundancy, 24 independent lines, backup generators tested and green across the board." Cole nodded. "And the entity?" "Still," the guard hesitated, "hasn't moved since recontainment." Cole glanced through the narrow viewing slit. Inside the chamber, SCP-173 stood frozen beneath the floodlights, its uneven head tilted slightly to one side, as though listening. He could almost swear its painted face had shifted since the last report. "Run the diagnostics again," he murmured. "I don't like statues that listen." The post-incident investigation stretched into weeks. Dozens of technicians combed through corrupted camera logs and black box data, piecing together the 27 seconds of blackout that had killed 32 people. Every second of footage leading up to the power failure showed nothing unusual. Just the cleaning crew working methodically, then static, then blood. Rourke's testimony was the only coherent account of what happened. Her voice, calm, shaking, echoed from the recording room speakers. It didn't just move when unseen. It waited. It chose when to move. Cole listened to the playback 3 times. Each time he felt a chill deeper than before. He muted the audio. Outside, the lights flickered once. Just once. He froze. Then the power stabilized. He exhaled slowly. At 2:17 that night, the motion sensors in SCP-173's chamber triggered, a short burst, less than half a second. No human presence detected. The cameras caught nothing but a blur of static, a single pixel shift in the creature's silhouette. The automated report labeled it false movement due to air vibration. Cole, reviewing it later, noted something different. The statue had changed position. Not much, maybe a tilt, maybe the faintest twist of the torso, but enough that the base marks didn't line up. And more unsettling still, one of the chamber's interior cameras had caught a shadow on the wall. A human outline, where there should have been none. By morning, Dr. Rourke had returned to duty. Her face was pale, her eyes hollowed by sleepless nights. Cole met her in the debrief room. "You sure you're ready?" he asked. She gave a tired nod. "I'm not staying away from it forever." He hesitated. You said it waited. What did you mean by that? Rourke stared down at the table. When the power went out, she said, it didn't attack right away. It moved closer, slow, like it wanted me to know it was there. It stopped inches from my face. I could feel air shift when it leaned in. Cole frowned. Leaning? She met his eyes. It doesn't need to see to know when it's being watched. I think it feels it. The room fell silent. That evening, a maintenance drone entered the chamber for calibration. Its cameras streamed in real time, clear, sharp, silent. For 3 minutes, SCP-173 remained motionless. At 3 minutes and 16 seconds, the drone's light flickered. Half a second, just a glitch. When the feed resumed, the entity was no longer centered. It was facing the camera directly. The next morning, Cole arrived to find the monitoring staff shaken. Something's wrong with the footage, one said, pale-faced. Cole stepped up to the primary screen. The video looped, the same few seconds, again and again, SCP-173 motionless. Then, for a frame, gone, reappearing 2 meters closer to the camera. Frame by frame, it moved, perfectly still between flickers, inching forward as though testing the rhythm of the lights. By the final frame, its face filled the entire view. Cole turned to the technician. That's not playback interference. The man swallowed. Then what is it? Cole didn't answer. Later that week, Site Command authorized a temporary observation lockdown. All power feeds to Sector C were rerouted for inspection. Cole stayed behind with a small team to supervise the transfer. The others left at midnight. He stayed, staring through the observation window at the still form under the lights. SCP-173 hadn't moved in days, but something about the way it stood now, its limbs slightly angled, its back arched, felt expectant. Cole scribbled a note in his log. Posture altered, possible mimicry behavior, suggest containment reevaluation. He paused, staring at the words. Then the lights flickered, just once. The next morning, Cole's office was found empty. His security badge lay on the floor outside SCP-173's chamber door. The cameras showed no entry, no exit. Only one unexplained frame. The door slightly ajar, SCP-173 standing inches from it, facing outward. And faintly visible on the glass window, a single handprint, human, pressed from the inside. When the O5 Council reviewed the footage, no one spoke for nearly a minute. Finally, O53 muttered, "It's learning the rhythm." O57 whispered, "What rhythm?" O59 answered, "Ours." In the weeks that followed, containment procedures were rewritten yet again. Additional lights installed, cameras upgraded, observation strictly automated. Still, reports continued. Sensors triggered, shadows caught where no one stood, subtle shifts in the creature's pose between frames. The most recent file contained a single note from Dr. Rourke. The entity doesn't need to move faster. It only needs to know when we blink. Part 3. The Machine That Never Sleeps. The Foundation called it Project Never Blink, a system designed to end the problem once and for all. It began 2 weeks after Specialist Cole's disappearance. His body was never recovered, his name quietly erased from the personnel database. But his notes, his last report about mimicry and rhythm, had reached the O5 Council. And the Council acted the only way it knew how, by building something that would never look away. The new containment chamber was constructed 4 levels below Site-19, encased in triple-layer concrete and powered by a fully isolated grid. 24 automated cameras surrounded SCP-173 on all sides, each running independent optical AI monitoring protocols. No humans would ever need to look at it again. No blinking, no error, artificial sight that never slept. They called the system Vigil. Dr. Elena Rourke stood in the observation control room the morning Vigil came online. Her face was pale under the glow of the monitors. Rows of screens displayed SCP-173 from every angle, each image frozen in still perfection, the statue's body lit like a sculpture under interrogation. The hum of servers filled the silence. A technician typed commands into the console, initiating the sequence. Vigil system active, neural vision process running, all 24 feeds stable. Rourke nodded. Keep it isolated. No network connection beyond this room. Yes, ma'am. She stared at the largest screen, the frontal camera feed. SCP-173 stood there, unmoving, its blank painted face catching the sterile light. She could almost imagine it breathing. "Let's see if you like being watched," she whispered. For the first 3 days, nothing happened. The creature did not move. No anomalies, no motion triggers, no unexplained frames. Vigil worked flawlessly. Technicians relaxed. Reports were written. The Foundation began drafting proposals to replicate the system for other visual-dependent SCPs. Confidence returned to Site-19. For a while. At 02:06 on the fourth night, one of the lower-tier analysts monitoring Vigil from the auxiliary room noticed something strange. Feed 12, the northwest corner camera, had dropped in brightness. Not by much, just a fraction of a lumen. At first, he thought it was a lighting fluctuation. But when he magnified the frame, he realized the creature's head angle had shifted by 2 degrees. He checked the logs. No power loss. No human presence. No alarm. And yet, in every frame, the head was turned slightly more toward the camera, like it was looking back. Eyes open, unblinking. By morning, the anomaly had vanished. The feeds aligned again, perfectly symmetrical. The analyst filed a maintenance note and said nothing more. That evening, he was found in his quarters, eyes open, unblinking, pupils fixed on the ceiling, neck broken. Security footage showed no one entering or leaving his room. The last recorded moment before his death showed the light in his room flicker. Just once. Dr. Rourke didn't sleep that night. She watched the monitors until dawn, each camera angle seared into her eyes. At 05:23, Feed 07 briefly cut to static. When it returned, SCP-173's position had changed again, subtle but undeniable. Rourke froze. The AI didn't react. No alarm triggered. Vigil's log read, no anomalous movement detected. She ran the footage back frame by frame. Every still image showed SCP-173 motionless. Yet the timestamp advanced, exactly 1 second missing. 1 second that no camera had seen. "How?" she whispered. Then she noticed something on the lower corner of the screen. A reflection. Tiny, barely visible. The faint outline of a human face in the glass, eyes wide, watching the monitor. Her own. The realization sank in slowly. The AI wasn't the one watching. It was being watched through it. Each lens, each sensor, each digital eye, all were connected through her observation console. Vigil didn't blink, but she did. And that was enough. At 5:47, all 24 feeds cut to black simultaneously. Vigil reported unknown signal interference. Emergency protocols activated. Floodlights switched to maximum. The room filled with a blinding glare as the backup monitors rebooted. For a brief moment, Rourke saw SCP-173 on the screen again. It stood directly before Camera 1, so close its head filled the frame. And behind it, reflected faintly in the polished concrete, a second shape. Not another statue, a human, standing beside it. When the lights returned, the chamber was empty. The cameras showed no trace of SCP-173, no sign of Dr. Rourke, only the silent hum of Vigil, still processing, still watching. When security teams arrived, the control room door was sealed from the inside. The monitors continued to run on a loop, each feed displaying the same still image, SCP-173, standing motionless in the center of the chamber, floodlights blazing. But behind it, barely visible in the corner of every frame, a human figure, always the same, always watching. The O5 Council convened that night an emergency session. O5-3, it used the system against us. It didn't need the dark anymore. O7, how? The AI doesn't blink. O9, no, he said softly, but we do, and every camera feeds into someone's eyes eventually. Silence fell over the room. Terminate Vigil. All digital observation suspended. SCP-173 to be contained by analog means only. He paused. His reflection flickered in the monitor across the table. For a heartbeat, the image beside him was not his own. The system was shut down at 3 hours. Power to the lower containment grid was severed. The room plunged into darkness. For a moment, the silence felt total. Then faintly, from the speakers of the deactivated console, a scraping sound, concrete on concrete, then a whisper, soft, almost human. Now I see you. No further data was recovered from Vigil. No visual confirmation of SCP-173's location has been obtained since the shutdown. Site-19 remains under restricted blackout protocol. Personnel are forbidden from using cameras, reflective surfaces, or digital monitoring equipment in Sector C. And yet, every few nights, the motion sensors still activate for less than a second. A single blip, a whisper of movement, always when no one is looking. Part 4, Recontainment. It had been 17 days since Vigil went dark. 17 days since the cameras failed, since Dr. Rourke disappeared, since the chamber stood empty and silent. Site-19 no longer spoke of SCP-173 aloud. They whispered instead, small, frightened conversations in mess halls and maintenance tunnels, never in rooms with reflective surfaces. Every shift began with the same announcement: containment breach status, active but unconfirmed. And every night, the same sound echoed faintly through the lower corridors: a scrape, a drag, concrete grinding over concrete. Mobile Task Force ETA-10, codenamed See No Evil, was deployed at 300 hours. Their mission was simple on paper: locate, immobilize, and recontain SCP-173. But every operative knew the truth. Nothing about this creature was simple. They wore full light rigs mounted to their helmets, flood lamps powerful enough to turn shadows to vapor. Each member's visor streamed real-time visual feed to an analog recorder. No AI, no network, just humans watching humans. "Keep your eyes on it," Captain Keller said, voice crackling through the comms. "No blinking alone, we blink together, on command only." "Copy," came the replies. The team entered Sector C, where the walls still bore faint scratches like fingernails dragged across concrete. The air was heavy, dust hung like ash, every footstep echoed too loud. "Motion sensor just triggered, Corridor 12, Keller whispered. The team advanced, flashlights slicing through the dark. At the corridor's end stood a metal maintenance door, dented inward. Beyond it, a service tunnel led toward the old containment grid. "Lights up, move slow." They breached. Inside the tunnel, every surface was marked with smears, faint brown streaks that might have been rust or might not. And there, against the far wall, it stood. SCP-173. Same cracked texture, same uneven proportions, same hollow stare. But this time, its entire body was coated in dust, as if it had been moving through the ventilation system for days. One operative swore softly. Keller's voice was steady. "Eyes on target. Form circle. Prepare stasis net." The team surrounded the creature, floodlights converging. It didn't move. It never moved, until the power flickered. A tremor ran through the facility, a backup generator shift. For less than half a second, the lights dimmed. A single pop, one bulb burst. When the lights returned, the statue was gone, and Private Raines was lying on the floor, neck snapped, head turned completely around. "Eyes front!" Keller barked. "Find it." "Behind you," someone screamed. SCP-173 stood 3 meters away now, facing Keller directly. It hadn't been there a second ago. "Backup light, now!" Another flicker, another step closer. Every breath became a countdown. Every blink, a death sentence. They retreated to the containment prep bay, backing through reinforced doors one at a time, keeping eyes on it through the slit window. "Close gate 2. "Negative. Rourke's containment pattern says." I said close it, but it was too late. The lights cut out again. Only the sound of snapping bones filled the dark. When emergency power returned, only 3 members remained: Keller, Sergeant Liu, and Technician Harris, each trembling, each refusing to blink. Keller's voice shook as he pulled the emergency flare from his belt. "Eyes open, on me. 1, 2, 3, blink." They blinked together. When their eyes opened, SCP-173 had not moved. The flare's red glow painted it in blood-colored light. "Deploy stasis shell," Keller shouted. Harris slammed the portable containment cylinder into place, a steel shell lined with phosphorus and pressure seals. The device emitted a piercing whine as it powered up. "Containment field charging, 3 seconds." "Don't blink." The lights pulsed once, twice, then steady. With a mechanical scream, the containment shell snapped shut around SCP-173. Metal teeth interlocked, sealing it inside. The noise stopped. Silence. It was trapped. When they finally dared to breathe, Keller fell to his knees. Lou was shaking uncontrollably. Harris vomited into his respirator, but it was over. The thing was trapped. They rolled the stasis shell back through Sector C, down into the reconstructed containment chamber. Floodlights, manual locks, no cameras this time, only mirrors positioned strategically for observation, each angled so that at least one set of human eyes always saw it. Analog, human, primitive, but safe. For now. Dr. Rourke's office was found 2 days later, empty. On her desk, a single note. It lets you catch it, because it wants to be home. Weeks passed. No further movement. No breaches. The Foundation declared SCP-173 recontained. MTF Eta-10 received commendations, posthumously for half the team. Their report ended with one chilling addendum. When we sealed the shell, it wasn't resisting. It was waiting. On the 15th night after recontainment, Keller visited the new chamber alone. He stood behind the observation glass, staring through the angled mirror at the Mohs figure. "Back where you belong," he muttered. For a moment, nothing. Then, a faint sound from within the shell. Not scraping this time. Tapping. Slow. Rhythmic, like a heartbeat made of stone. Keller turned to leave, but as he reached the door, the overhead light flickered. Just once. And from behind him came a whisper, low and familiar. "We blink together."